Hello everyone, and welcome to Dark Natter, the podcast where we... I forgot to think of one. The podcast where we talk
shit.
Dark fiction a lot. The podcast where we explore a dark, sinister world in the guise of a creepy child with a large head. Does that work?
I'm tired, I'm busy. Get on with it.
Get this crap out of the way.
I got no sweets. I got no sugar.
You haven't got your usual...
No.
What's the word? Fuel.
Exactly.
You're not fueled by either a fruit pastel or... What's it been? Licorice all sorts?
Yeah, I had a little phase of them, actually. And then some toffees. I got quite into me toffees again. I mean, when we started doing this podcast, I would often have a beer or two, wouldn't I? But I don't know what's happened. I've sort of regressed somehow, and here we are. It's lockdown, isn't it? It's lockdown.
It's lockdown. In fact, we're still doing this remotely, aren't we? I haven't seen you for ages, and I'm very pleased. I mean, sad about that. This bollocks that as well, isn't it? We went to the pub the other day, didn't we? Because they've reopened.
Yeah.
At the time
outdoors only. It was fucking freezing, but
it was really unpleasantly cold, wasn't it? The novelty wore off quite rapidly. Actually.
The company wasn't great, and it was.
And in the spirit of poor preparation, we haven't got like a skit or anything for today. This is unscripted.
This is the most phoned in Dark Natter episode yet, and that's saying something.
But don't worry, we're going to make up for our lack of preparation with scintillating dialogue and discussion, aren't we?
Why have we got a guest coming on? Have we? God, I'm in a miserable mood today. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm sorry, everyone. I know you listen to hear my inspirational natter, and
I don't think they do.
Hear me lose confidence in the point I'm making halfway through, and then just kind of stop talking and let you take over. So,
but that's one of your trademarks.
It
isn't
is.
That's how this show works.
Pretty much,
part of its charm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, speaking of, that's more like it.
We haven't done that yet, have we?
Should we do the normal preamble?
Yeah.
But, I mean, just in case anyone who has never listened to the show before, and despite that appalling introduction, is still somehow listening, we should probably explain the concept. Dark Natter is the podcast where we slice, dice, and dissect your favourite works of dark fiction. That's what I should have said before. And the format is that Liam and I being John Richter, Liam being Liam.
And I'm Liam Martin.
That's well said. We pick between us, or one of us picks, a dark fiction subject, be it a book or a film or a video game or something more strange and esoteric, as long as it can vaguely just about be argued to constitute a piece of dark fiction. We will then, one of us will pitch it to t'other, who must ascertain and adjudicate as to whether they are suitably convinced that it's worthy of a place in the hallowed halls, the illustrious passageways, the creepy corridors, the much sought after...
You went one too far there, mate.
Yeah, I can't think of a synonym for passageway. Corridor? Have I said corridor? I've said corridors already. The sought after innards of...
You lost me there.
The Hall of Pain. You went a bit Muppets there, didn't you?
Very much so.
Bloke on the drums. I liked it though. You're keeping it fresh. We've been 18 months and you're still finding new laughs to do. There was another one that you just did. Like a Weasley one, sort of a creepy one.
18 months, eh? Wow.
Who'd have thought?
Not me, that's for sure.
You would still be going. And today it's your turn, Liam, to pitch a topic.
It is, and it's funny you should mention video games, because that's what I'm going to be pitching. 2 of them, in fact.
And creepy little kids, I mentioned as well. Do they feature at all in these video games by any chance?
Funnily enough, you should mention that, because they do in both of them. Do you want me to tell you what the games are?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
So today I'm going to pitch to you I'm going to talk about, well, I'm hoping you'll talk about it and I'll just make the odd sarcastic comment. We're going to be talking about video games Limbo and Inside, which are both developed by Playdead.
Two different video games. Explain that.
Both developed by a company called Playdead.
You mean the Danish independent studio that was formed in 2006 by... Oh, I've lost it.
The very same.
Game designers Arndt Jensen and Dino Patti.
The very same.
You know, just very quickly to jump ahead, that company still exists after creating Limbo and Inside. Limbo released in 2010, Inside released in 2016 across a variety of formats. But Playdead still exists and are working on the next thingy. But those two founders, they fell out a bit and one of them left and it was all a bit acrimonious. That's sad, isn't it?
Ah, that is a bit sad actually.
Your long pause suggests you're not that bothered.
No, I had if this was being broadcast on video, I had a moment where my child just walked into the room without me knowing, and so I had to quickly get rid of him.
You had to deal with that issue. Was he a creepy child with a large head?
Very creepy, very large head.
And no face,
basically,
no visible features.
But no, that is sad actually. That has actually... I kind of wish you told me that at the end, because my enthusiasm has been sapped.
Your already low level of enthusiasm
exactly.
is
That is a shame.
Is that what you're trying to say?
So what are they doing then? So what, one of them left, or? One of them...
Well, interestingly, one of them has founded...
Found-I.
Found-I.
I always say that to G whenever talk about plural.
Found-I.
Sorry, carry on.
He's found a new UK-based studio called Jump Ship, which is interesting.
Ooh,
sounds a bit like a bit
does
of a dig,
doesn't it?
Do you know what I mean? Like, you may as well have called it, this is my new... I'm announcing my new studio. My ex-partner is a bellend. You know what I mean? But, no.
Funnily enough, that's the name of my new podcast.
Well, partner in a like detectives, just to clarify, we're not lovers.
Well,
don't want anyone to think.
Why not?
Just to be clear, I'm not being homophobic. I'm just repulsed by the idea of being your lover. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Because I'm a man.
Because, yes.
Edit that out.
Oh, see, now that's annoying, because now I'm going to have to edit out a funny bit.
Yeah.
But
anyway.
I'll see if I can recover it. So, yeah, putting the sad ending to one side, the heyday when they were busily creating these two gaming masterpieces was, wow, what a achievement, double whammy of utterly brilliant games.
Absolutely, yeah.
Tell us about your history. When did you first stumble across them, and in what order?
Funnily enough,
stuff?
if you've been listening to this podcast regularly, and I believe there are one or two people that do listen to it, so thank you very much. Thanks, Mum. If you've been listening, we recently talked about a game called The Binding of Isaac, and at the end we had an hilarious chat about indie video games. And so Limbo, I always think of Braid as being the kind of the one that sort of kick-started the kind of indie revolution. It was the game, it came onto Xbox Live, and it was a game you could download only, and it was, fairly cheap, and it was a sort of throwback, the 2D visuals, to the glory days of gaming. And Limbo I always think of as being like the next one. So Braid came out in 2008, and there were obviously other indie games. I mean, there were indie games before Braid, but Limbo was the next big one that I remember everyone was talking about. And it was just the next big thing on the kind of indie game scene. Again, I could be wrong, but that's just my perception of it when it came out. And it was actually, funnily enough, it was actually you who kind of... While I was aware of it and I had every intention of playing it, I think it was you that really championed it to me, which made me kind of, all right, I'll get on with this. Because I remember going to your house or flat one time, and you just showed me like the opening bit, and I think I went home and downloaded it and played it, and then we could chat about it. So yeah,
that's nice. It's nice when you make a recommendation and somebody like, you know what I mean, and it works.
Yeah,
So it's quite a nice feeling, isn't it? Well, I'm glad I did.
You didn't do me the same service when I gave you a copy of Dark Souls, and then you.
I did after 8 years. Eventually,
He disrespected me.
Not only did I not play it, I also lost it and had to rebuy it. So that's like the ultimate snub, isn't it?
Massive.
I'm sorry
yeah,
about
massive.
that.
But no, anyway, jokes aside, yeah, so it was actually you who, whilst I was aware of it, and as I say, I intended to play it at some point, it was after speaking to you that I thought, right, I'm definitely going to jump on this, and I was glad I did. It was, really, really good 2D platform puzzle game, I suppose is the way you'd best describe it.
Might be worth just chipping in the spoiler warning that we often forget to do. So we will be covering spoilers for both Limbo and Inside. And as usual, with a lot of our recommendations, we recommend that you don't listen to us, but turn this crap off, and immediately go and play both games and then come back.
I was thinking about that, though, John, and it's like, well, if we tell them not to listen to it, then that's like basically our whole audience. We haven't got many listeners to begin with. So if they are listening to this and now we're telling them not to, so, what's going on?
So what you're saying is...
just listen to this, don't play it.
Spoilers are coming, but don't worry. Even though it's a brilliant video game and you're completely missing out.
Don't do that, yeah.
Don't do that. Don't enjoy your life. Just listen to two hacks explain it to you, verbally.
Very poorly.
Instead. Well, how would you describe Limbo? You've talked about it as a 2D puzzle platformer.
Yep.
I guess the big noticeable thing about it is its choice of completely monochrome graphics. So it's got this really sort of original presentation style, silhouette, shadowy, lovely kind of lighting, but makes it very sort of moody, atmospheric and sinister.
Yeah, well, definitely, yeah. I mean, was that a question, or... you're just going to steal my thunder all episode? Because I'm getting sick of it, actually, mate. I told you I was in a miserable mood. No, actually, you put it, perfectly. Yeah, I think that is the kind of, especially at the time, as I say, indie games were kind of becoming really, starting to sort of become more mainstream. And I think in the years since then, I mean, how many kind of pixel art games can you remember playing now, or even those ones that are kind of that sort of flash style art style, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a bit done to death, isn't it, to be honest? Like even this trope of, as we alluded to earlier, that the main character, you play a little boy with a oversized cartoon depictions. He's got a big head to make him look cute and young. But there's just how many bloody indie platformers have got a big-headed little kid as the main character at the 10 a penny now.
Admittedly, I can't name any, but yeah, I think you're right.
I can think of one. And it came out before Limbo.
What was it? Well, Braid.
Wonder Boy on the Sega Mega Drive.
Yeah. Braid obviously was a man, but it was still a big-headed man. But no, in fairness, it was still, like I said, indie games were still kind of a new sort of thing at the time for me, and the choice to make it 2D is great because I love 2D platform games, always have. But the art style as well, the monochrome art style, it was very different, and as you say, it lended itself to the kind of atmosphere that it, trying to convey.
There's a thing as well, maybe in the last 10 years or so, and I know there's examples from earlier, but not many, is where video games has matured as a medium, and you've started to get video games that are, in effect, aimed at adults rather than aimed at teenagers.
Spot on.
So if you sort of a dark fiction kind of fan, most of your video game options were basically sort of silly, daft, Resident Evil, B-movie, gore-based, shoot 'em up. It's ultra-violent. There weren't many that were kind of cerebral, and certainly there weren't many that were kind of, I'm going to say, restrained. Now, it could be argued that Limbo isn't restrained, because although it doesn't have bucket loads of gore, because it, black and white, so there's no red blood, the main character does suffer some. People have called it like a trial sort of trial by death gaming. So it's like infinite lives. You're definitely going to die shed loads of times. Just keep trying until you figure it out. But the poor little boy does get, his head chopped off and his legs chomped off by man traps, and he does suffer some pretty horrendous fates. But it's not presented in this like in your face, gore, death, blood and guts. It's very like muted. There's barely a soundtrack. It's just this kind of swirling ambient music, and it's very sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of understated.
Yeah, that's fair. Funny enough, because actually another game that came out, I always remember them coming. It was like the Xbox Live did like I can't remember what they called it now, but it was like Summer of Indies, basically, something like that. And another game that came out that had a lot of buzz was Trials HD, which is kind of like a physics-based motorbike game. And this is a physics-based platformer. But with that one, obviously, it was much more in your face. It was supposed to be. And when you kind of went splat and that, it was quite funny, and it was like, ooh, you'd wince. And this is similar in the sense that it's really, because the physics are such that you really kind of, there's a certain real sense of weight to the way he kind of falls and moves, and
sort of ragdoll physics,
exactly.
They call
That's
it, where
right,
you sort of your arms and legs are kind of flopping all over the place. But
as you say, it's not presented in a way that you kind of get a kick out of it. It's kind of, ooh, that's horrible,
Yeah, it is horrible, and there's the premise of the game is interesting as well. There's no dialogue or text or basically any plot. I think you're told, if almost like, not the instruction manual, because no one does instruction manuals anymore, but I think sort of when if you bought the game on Steam or whatever, I think it tells you as the player are told that you're searching for your sister, and that's the only piece of information you've got to go on. And the boy sort of wakes up lying down in the woods, sort of blinks himself awake, and you see in his kind of dark shadow of a face, he's just got these two white pinpricks of eyes with no visible expression or anything, making him look even cuter. Bless him. And then you just kind of, that's it, you just stumble off into the woods, and there's no more, you just have to figure out what to do and how to proceed beyond each bit.
Yeah.
And some of it, as you say, is puzzle based, and some of it's more sort of, it is puzzles, but it's kind of action oriented. So it's like, a scary person that I need to escape from.
Yeah.
But there's just some brilliant sort of set pieces in it, I think.
The first one you'll probably come across is the spider chase. That's really early on, brilliant. Isn't it? And
horrible.
Yeah, so some parts of it will test your kind of speed and reflexes and your skill, but a lot of it is, there are a lot of puzzle elements as well, like, moving things here and there, but it doesn't really give you, much like, Dark Souls and games we all seem to really enjoy now, it doesn't really give you much to go on when you start. It just kind of lets you figure it out. Not that it's, a complicated game per se, but I just think it's quite nice now that getting a lot of games that, I loathe video game tutorials for the most part. Sometimes they're done
because they're teaching you to do things that you almost definitely already know how to do, because it treats you like you've never played a video game before.
It's like there are some racing games that do it, and it's like, all you need to know how to accelerate. As long as you know how to accelerate and brake, and if you've got automatic transmission, you don't have to bother with the gears. It's like, why are you stopping my race and starting it and stopping it and starting it to teach me how to do this really fucking easy stuff? And if I can't do it first time, let me lose a bloody race and I'll figure it out next time, won't I? You dick.
Yeah.
No, but some of these video game tutorials, Christ, they're
painful. I think I don't mind them telling me what to do in a kind of showcasing.
But Dark Souls does that, because it just gives you as you leave the kind of the dungeon, it tells you how to perform the moves, and it presents you an opportunity to carry on it. But it's not, this is a tutorial, this is going to last for half an hour, you can't skip it.
It's the length, exactly. It's the duration of it. It's like tell me on the screen, press R1 to attack, and then maybe give me an enemy that I need to attack.
Boom,
no
done.
problem. Don't then freeze the game. Hey, why don't you try pressing R1?
Yeah.
Great job. Now you can also block by pressing L1.
Try it
and
now,
it's like this kind of pause. It's just...
annoys me.
Whereas Limbo, you're quite right, you're just straight in. And it doesn't... Another thing that has started to really grate on me is exposition. And this is why I have completely gone off Hideo Kojima as a video game after Death Stranding, which I did not like. Because it was just constant, like... Here's some information about the world because it's so cool, and here's a load of text telling you about all the intricacies of how to do this thing, and and it was like, I'm not interested. Whereas games like Limbo, Dark Souls, etc., much more ambiguous, doesn't fill in all the gaps, and it just makes you just feel like an adult. You feel like you're being treated like a grown man.
And I think that's better for the medium of video games because they try so hard to be, like movies, but it's not, because you get like, here's a chunk of story, now you're going to play for 10 minutes, finish a level, here's another chunk of story. Like, that's not how movies and TV shows work, are they? It's an ongoing... So I don't know, it just winds me up.
You want it to be... You want the story to somehow be revealed through the process of play, instead of environmental storytelling we've talked about before, where it's like, I've walking past some dead bodies tells me that something bad has happened. You don't have to then show me a 5-minute cutscene where somebody goes, hey, something bad happened here, and blah 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 blah, or read a text bloody log, or it's just it's too spoon feeding too much. It just becomes really dull. And Limbo's definitely got some great examples of really, really sort of ambiguous environmental stuff. Like, as we said, you start off in the woods, you encounter that flipping horrible, brilliantly animated spider that really does move like a real spider, and that's pretty creepy because it's massive. But then before you know it, you're in like a sort of an industrial district, and you have to jump across that sign, don't you? It says hotel.
That's right, yeah.
And it's like electrified, so you have to be careful you don't step on it at the wrong time or you die, because you die a lot in this game. But it doesn't explain why you're there or what the hotel is or any other information. It's just a sort of, which makes it seem all the more sort of a bit creepy and disconcerting.
But also, the game is called Limbo. You'd start off in the woods and you're journeying somewhere for some reason. So, immediately my mind goes to, well, I'm assuming this boy's dead and like he's figuring it out, or he's, he's trying to make his way to heaven or whatever. So he's kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember.
Big-headed.
That's the one. Big-headed. No, but you know what I mean. He's the title of the game and just what's happening. Just makes me think: is this something to do with the afterlife? And
definitely. And it has that feel. It has that otherworldly, ghostly sort of feel. And you could infer from that what's been presented to you, the title and the game, that he himself, as you say, maybe he's dead. You could infer that maybe the girl that he's looking for, his sister, he's
dead.
In Limbo and he's kind of journeyed there, like Orpheus in the underworld kind of thing. But it doesn't feel the need to tell, your name is Steve, Big Head Steve, and you're there to rescue your sister, Abigail, and blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was one set piece I was going to mention is, and this gives you an idea of the kind of dark nature. There's a puzzle where... So this boy is the crappiest boy ever at swimming ever. He drowns within about 5 seconds of touching water, doesn't he? It's like, head goes below the surface immediately.
Maybe because his head's so big.
Maybe because his head's so big, exactly. Could be a condition, so I shouldn't mock it. But that'd be funny, wouldn't it, if that was their intention? Like, it's not that he's meant to be a caricature, he's just a kid with a grotesquely oversized head. And that's... It's like a sad story.
Poor Steve.
Poor Steve. So Steve, as we're going to call him, Steve you find a little patch of water that you can't jump across, and of course you'll try and fail. And a bit earlier, up the hill, you've walked past some dead bodies, and there's like flies buzzing around them, and it's generally unpleasant. And it takes you none of the puzzles are that difficult, but they all have that thing of making you feel really clever when you figure them out.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And of course, you can see where this is going. The trick is you have to drag the corpse down the hill, lob the corpse in the water and jump on it like a stepping stone. And there's just loads of little, clever, simple, briefly flummoxing puzzles like that.
You're right, actually. It definitely... They're not that challenging, really, but you do feel, oh, yeah, I'm really clever. Which, I don't often feel like that, so it's quite nice.
It's got some good ideas. That there's a bit where a white worm that dangles off the ceiling. If you walk underneath it, it drops onto Steve's head and sort of burrows halfway into his brain. And this, if I remember rightly, causes him to, I think, turn around in the opposite direction and start walking zombie-like. And you still have some control over him. You can still slow him down and you can still jump, but you can't stop him from walking in that direction unless you step out into the light, into a ray of sunlight, and that sort of burns the worm off his head.
Yeah.
And they managed to make loads of interesting puzzles out of that little constraint, I thought.
Yeah, totally.
Can you remember any other standout either puzzles or encounters from that first game?
No. I genuinely, you kind of said the good ones.
That's why I said them. I have got one more though.
On.
I can bail you out. It's the upside down stuff is pretty cool. When you can switch the gravity upside down, that's a bit mind bending.
Yeah.
And he spends a lot of time in a factory full of buzzsaws, doesn't he, as well?
You sure that wasn't Super Meat Boy?
Well, it seems to become a trope of the indie genre. Is they're like a buzzsaw in a game, but
and obviously many, lots of brutal deaths, courtesy of those.
God,
blasted buzzsaws.
Seems to be a factory that doesn't do anything other than, buzzsaws are plenty, but they don't seem to be cutting any wood or anything. It's just full of buzzsaws for a laugh.
And then you finish it, and there's quite a sad ending, I suppose.
It was so kind of, again, sort of understated that I almost kind of missed it. Like you basically quite abruptly sort of stumble upon this girl, or the big-headed silhouette of a little girl, and she's facing away from you, knelt down in the earth, and she's kind of doing something, and she seems to be sitting at the bottom of a tree house. And then the boy just stands there and watches her for a bit, and then that's it, that's your lot. And I didn't even sort of clock... It could be interpreted that she's burying something, and it therefore could be interpreted that she's burying even maybe like you.
And that you maybe fell out of your treehouse, or I don't know.
Just seems a bit irresponsible of the parents, doesn't it, to let the little kid bury the other kid? Like, you'd think they'd want a proper service,
maybe.
Wouldn't you? Cost cutting.
There is, because I was reading up about it before we recorded, aka I'm looking at something now as we're recording. And apparently, according to some religions, you can only escape limbo when you are properly buried. So his sister buries him, and that's where the game ends. But it's unknown whether your final place of rest for Steve is heaven or hell. And the things he encounters during the game could be representative of his fears.
Although, I suppose not entirely original as a concept, but maybe that wasn't, they weren't going for this big kind of, oh my God, what an incredible, shocking reveal. Because as you said, it could be pretty easily inferred from the opening screen that you're in limbo and therefore you may be dead.
And of course, that's just that. But that's the thing, that's just a theory. And there are many theories about the game and what the ending means and what the things mean. So, and that's good. I like that. Creates discussion. And
why don't you come up with one right now? An original theory about what's going on in Limbo.
Steve isn't dead. But his sister has nicked his licorice all sorts, and she's burying them where she thinks he won't find them. But he's caught her in the act.
Well.
And she knocked him out. That's why he woke up in the forest, because she knocked him out to take them. And he went through heaven and hell. well, or Limbo, to get them back.
And is he going to...
And so he kills her.
With a buzzsaw?
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. She had it coming.
What about you? What's your theory?
I was going to say exactly the same thing.
Well, it's the obvious one.
Weird
I know it's the
coincidence,
obvious
actually.
one. But...
Yeah.
But no, really good game. Powerful ending. Satisfying puzzles. And, I mean, certainly at the time it was quite a lot different to kind of anything else. But, nowadays, as you say, been done to death.
Yeah, but it's still, but it's not aged
not
at
all.
all.
Well, that's the good thing about
you could completely still play.
Yeah,
it.
Using sort of those stylized visuals and the 2D style, it ages really well because you go back to the 16-bit era, and most of those Super Nintendo and Mega Drive games, I think, look better than the PlayStation 3D games. Because the 3D games are just so janky now that...
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, whilst those 16-bit, sprite-based, really colourful platform games, they still play really well today. So, yeah, there's something to be said for the style they use. Not only was it... not only did it kind of lend itself to what they were trying to say, I guess, but also it just means the game has aged really well. Nice smooth animation as well.
Exactly. I was going to say there's something to be said maybe for another thing that's become overused, I think, is that whole kind of retro pixel art
totally,
thing.
yeah.
So although, whereas this is it's not retro, it's just 2D, beautifully animated, beautifully drawn. So I think I quite like, if games are going to go down the lower budget or kind of route that it's not all full 3D and blah, 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 I quite like it if they try something a bit different rather than saying, "Oh, we're going to do retro pixel art."
And don't get me wrong, I like retro pixel art, but I can't explain it. But there are certain styles of games that go for this kind of retro look that I really just don't like anymore, and I wonder if that's just because it's been done to death. As I say, there are still lots of pixel art games I really like the look of, but some now that. There's a certain kind of style that I just don't like, and this isn't one of them. So I'll stop talking.
But I think in summary, Limbo, it's so good it could well have justified a place in the Hall of Pain on its own merit. Maybe.
Yeah.
Even.
Well, maybe that's the game. He's looking for a way out of the Hall of Pain, or a way in.
I think the Hall of Pain is less classy than Limbo. I think the Hall of Pain is probably quite sort of schlock B-movie gore drenched, I would say.
All the more reason to try and escape it.
Or get in it, depending on what you're into. Speaking of getting
into
things,
Aye.
That brings us neatly on to the game that we wanted to talk about from the same developer, which is Inside. And it's not just a pair because Inside is made by the same people. It's a very, very similar game with lots of, the same DNA carried across from one to the other. That's not to say that it's lazy rip-off, try and make the same thing, because it's very different in a number of ways, as we'll explain. But certainly at its outset, it's not black and white, but it does have this quite muted kind of colour palette.
Yes. Yeah.
And you do start off playing a cute-looking cartoon big-headed boy again. And
similar, really nice animation, the same kind of physics style, sort of platforming. So you're right. I don't think it's not unfair to lump them in together because they, like you said, they do share a lot of the same DNA. Can you remember when you played this?
I think, if I remember rightly, you had moved into my house for a bit.
Indeed.
You had to play this for a review.
Indeed.
I wasn't available because of work or some bollocks. And then you emerged from having played it to say, sort of, 10 out of 10 review, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And then made sure I played it forthwith. And I agree with you. I think it's a blooming masterpiece.
I remember you coming in for bits of it, because I do remember us playing bits of it together. And then I think maybe you were like, oh, actually, I do like this, so I'm going to play it in full. In fact, I feel like the first time I played through it, you were there for most of it.
Maybe I've misremembered in that case, but because I did play Inside a lot, and it's one of the few games that I would actually replay and recomplete, because I'm usually a bit kind of one and done.
Me too.
The story's done and dusted now, and I know you're the same. But with this one, it's just such a joy to play. It's a really good game to kind of get non-gamers to play.
Yeah.
Because it's dark and sinister and adult, but it's also easy to control because there's only 2 buttons.
Yeah. And again, it's got that... It's, again, very similar to Limbo. There are lots of kind of physics-based puzzles. And there are some other unique sort of gameplay twists we'll probably get to, but... It's another one of those games where you kind of makes you feel really clever, doesn't it? When you complete some of those puzzles.
Yeah, definitely. You're spot on, and it's.
I remember wasn't there one you had to throw like some body over something to get? I can't remember. Yeah, but because I've only played this once. I only played it that one time to review it, and I think I watched you play a bit of it, or I've watched lots of videos about it as well because. Again, it's another game with a sort of ambiguous ending, yeah. But, I've only done it once, but Christ, I think this is better than Limbo, personally.
Yeah, me too. I think it is an evolution of the concept.
And that's impressive in itself, because Limbo is great, as we've already said. So for this to be even better and more powerful and kind of more
just
shocking.
A huge achievement.
Wow.
Yeah. It really, really impressive. I kind of think that whereas Limbo occasionally felt a bit like walk along, encounter puzzle, solve puzzle, walk along, encounter next puzzle. Inside has almost got it feels more immersive and like there's a constant, there's sort of something going on all the time. So that opening sequence, for example, you first, initially, I don't know whether you agree, I got the impression he was on the run.
I did as well,
he's in the woods again. But he's been pursued, isn't he, by these kind of horrible-looking men with like masks on and dogs, like properly scary barking dogs. This reminded me of the opening of Willow. And so it's not just get this fridge and drag it to this wall so you can climb on it, so you can climb over the wall. It's do that, but in the background you can see these men are searching for you. You can hear the dogs barking.
Yeah.
It just had this sense of kind of urgency and tension.
And I'm the same. I thought it looked like. Is it some sort of military thing and he's trying to escape from some facility and they're onto him but kind of the opposite, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very clever. It's very clever, and so without going through too much detail, but in effect, as you progress through the game's series of interesting locations, and they did mix it up a bit. They didn't just rehash all the stuff from Limbo. You've got like a pig farm where the pigs seem to have... There's a little bit of crossover. There's those white worm things reappear.
That's right, yeah.
But this time it seems to be making the pigs, for example, behave aggressively. And there's a weird puzzle where you have to put a load of chicks into like a wood chipper to blast them at a haystack to knock it off a rafter so you can climb. It's all a bit very dark again. But, and he's slogging through a sort of leaky, unpleasant, sewage-looking swampland. But you realise he's not escaping from something. He's trying to break in to something, as you say, like a big, almost like military-esque facility. And the first time I really kind of realised that was you see this procession of almost like mindless, shambling zombie people.
This is that first time you see them. Carry on, and I'll make my point after. Carry on.
Well, I was going to say, so you see all these people, and it's almost like they're just sort of 1, 2, 3, almost like marching in a procession. And I think you see him in the background first. And this was so clever. There's such a clever little nuance. And as your character is running, because it's only 2-dimensional, you can run from left to right. That's it. You can't go up and into the screen. But when something happens in the background, the boy's head just turns towards it. Just what a clever way of getting you, the player, to look at the thing in the background. Because your character is looking at it because he's interested. And you end up having to join that procession. And they're almost sort of checking, aren't they, and making sure there's no infiltrators. So if you don't mirror their movements precisely, you basically get hoiked out and electrocuted and killed. So you have to kind of shamble along as if you're a zombie. I guess, yeah, it's at that point you kind of realise, oh, right, this kid's he's trying to get inside, not the other way around.
And he can also he puts a device on and he can kind of control them as well, can't he? That was the kind of sort of gameplay twist I was talking about, because you can get them to do things in the kind of background or, you know, wherever, to sort of help you solve these puzzles. But do you remember the first time you encountered them and they weren't even moving, and you had that? I might be misremembering it.
Yes, but you've nailed it. You're spot on. The very first time I think you encounter the zombies might be before you witness them in a big procession. It might be when you first get access to one of those helmets. Yeah. So yeah, that gameplay twist you touched on was something that wasn't a feature in Limbo. You can find these, they're suspended from the ceiling, so you can't take them with you. They're attached to the background, in effect. But you can sort of jump. It's almost like they're at head height for an adult, but you can jump into them as a little boy. You know, jump off the floor, rams his head into this helmet, and that gives him the ability to, whatever he then does. So let's say he mimes walking on the spot as he's suspended from this helmet.
That's right.
Wallace and Gromit style. Any of the zombies in the nearby vicinity will do his bidding and will mirror his movements. So the very first time you jump into this helmet, not knowing what it is, start moving, and you realize, there's 6, naked zombie people have just woke up, clambered up off the floor, and in the background of the screen, really come on.
And it's during the pig thing. It's during one of the pig things. You're in almost like a sort of, it looks a bit like a barn almost, and there's one just hanging down.
Yeah, knackered
and you use the pig, if I remember, to get on it. And then you're, as you say, just suspended, and suddenly the one in the background just kind of pops up. And I remember just thinking, what the, is going on?
And you have to, the people you now realise you have some control over, you need to manipulate them into sort of breaking down some of the ropey, knackered barn wood scenery so that you can then progress, because currently your path is blocked. So it's just puzzles, right? Again, it's a new clever mechanic to use to spring some kind of quite crafty puzzles upon you that all revolve around you sort of controlling these mindless of minions, but meanwhile, it just has this disturbing feel, doesn't it? Well, what the hell? Why are these people like this? What's going on?
I mean, naturally, I assumed it's some sort of government mind control thing where, they're transforming people into slaves and
maybe using the words.
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe, But,
and what's this kid doing? Is he trying to rescue someone? Is he? Yeah, so it's interesting.
It might be worth mentioning, because I think you encounter the first one in the barn. Sometimes you see these yellow wires, and they're always quite tricky to follow, and it's not straightforward, but in effect they will always lead to these little secrets, which are these machines, and if you unplug the machine, basically destroy it, nothing happens, but you get a very, very, very special secret ending if you manage to find them all, which I will confess I didn't, so I had to look up how to get them all. But if you do manage that, the alternate ending, which we'll come back to later, I thought was like mind-blowingly good. One of my favourite things about the game is that sort of twist.
So good. And so
bumps territory.
It's just so just really dark, creepy, and again you get all these, similar to Limbo, you have all these kind of really brutal deaths potentially, don't you? And although he can swim a bit better than the other one.
Yeah, he's not as crap as Steve, but you get, some of them are horrible. Like if the blokes who are trying to catch you, who evidently are kind of guards, they just choke the poor boy to death while looking furtively over their shoulder as if they don't want to be seen doing what they're doing. It's really dark.
Really dark.
Strangle him. Dogs can kill you, obviously, if you're not careful around them. But ultimately, you make it through a series of challenges. Some really weird stuff. There's that bit with the sound waves.
Yeah.
Remember that bit where it's like they're running some experiment where they're just blasting this fake building. It's like a building with like dummies in it. Like one of those nuclear testing sites. And it's just been blasted with these powerful sound waves, and you can only advance at the right moment, otherwise you get splattered to oblivion. But it never explains what that technology is all about, or what the government are trying to achieve there. It's just creepy.
And a bit when he's swimming, there's that like other weird kid kind of chasing you and drowns you, but then there's a twist with that as well, isn't there? That he actually he gets you eventually in the in the right place, and he drags you down, but he actually presumably is helping you because he helps you. Gives you like a breathing device or something, doesn't he?
Yeah, or it gives you the ability to breathe underwater without drowning, which enables you to progress. So you're quite right. Evidently, that creature, whatever it is, whether it's another, it's like failed experiment or whatever,
it looks like a long-haired boy almost. Or I don't know.
And the place that it's occupying, interestingly, is what appears to be a flooded science facility. So I remember somebody was speculating that the dystopia that the game is depicting is in effect, like a global warming, water levels rising type situation. So it's like you progress through a series of abandoned scientific facilities until you get to the current one, which is obviously higher up because it hasn't been flooded yet. Which that's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah.
But what awaits you in the final facility is completely unexpected. And again, spoiler alert, because this is...
Did not see this coming at all.
So you follow... Initially you follow a load of scientists as they're sort of running, heading towards something, and there's there's like an air of excitement, like, oh, what's happening? And that's really cool, because they're not trying to stop you, they're just all running towards it. And it's like there's some activity in this, let's call it a tank, but it's not like an aquarium sized, it's massive. And you can't see what is in it, but then, I can't quite remember how this comes about, but you sort of fall, you fall through the floor or whatever, and you eventually find your way to sort of, you're propelled up and into the tank, in the water, using your newfound breathing ability. Just as a quick aside, on your way there, you do run past there's some really creepy shit in the background of this game, like just like a glass cage, or see-through plastic walled cage, and there's just like this odd, really tall, skinny creature just in it, and as you go past, it kind of follows you as if it's watching. I
completely
weird.
Forgot about that, but yeah, geez.
Disturbing sights all over this grotesque facility. Anyway, young boy gets propelled into the tank, where you find there's a massive blob of merged together people, arms, legs, heads, bodies have all been sort of subsumed into one weird hole.
Crazy. Just
a blob.
Yeah. What else can you say? It's just unexpected, to say the least. And then the kind of the very end of the game is you kind of become part of this blob and escape the facility, and like this, it's just really kind of like sort of rolling through, clumsily smashing everything out of the way, and end up on a beach.
But that moment when the boy gets pulled into the blob, and then you, from that point on, you control the blob. You don't control the boy anymore. The boy, that's it. The boy's gone. You're in the blob. You're the blob now, which is brilliant. And I think there's a bit where you can cause the blob to sort of burst out of its restraints, and then that bit where you kind of pull basically bust out of the tank, and all the water's just spraying everywhere, and all the scientists are like, "Oh my god!" and they're all running away. It's really satisfying. You feel like it's like you're playing King Kong in a monster movie. It's ace, and you're sort of stampeding through the facility. There's one guy you get to confront, that creepy, like, not creepy, but presumably horrible sort of CEO looking guy in his office, and just splatter him to death. Really fun.
And it's just the way the blob moves. It's got all like lots of legs, just like I said, all clumsily kind of rolling through the facility, and it's sort of really disgusting, but quite satisfying to control, isn't it? Yeah.
And funny. Yeah, really like falling all over, like it can barely stand up properly. It can squeeze through small spaces, and it can wrench doors off because it's really strong, because it's got the combined strength of...
Like just smashes through walls and things, can't it? So to some extent,
it's awesome.
And don't those things like all start following you as well?
Well, I think I remember that specific creepy thing I was referring to. I seem to remember when you next go past that cage as the blob, the creepy thing is not there. as if it's implied that it's now escaped in
Oh
the chaos.
right, okay, that's quite
But
cool. I can't remember the thing very well, but yeah.
and so you basically, the blob is trying to escape to be outside, I guess, rather than inside. And you sort of, again, brilliant ambiguous storytelling. You are helped on the way by some of the staff who like open doors for you or whatever. And you wonder, I originally thought, oh, maybe some of them have taken pity on the blob and they're trying to let it get out. Or maybe they're just trying to let it get out because they're terrified of it, so they don't want it to hurt them. But ultimately, as you said, you finally burst out into the sunshine and the blob careers off down this big pine tree hill, like crash, smashing down, rolls and rolls and rolls to a stop at the bottom of this hill with just the sort of shaft of sunlight shining onto it. And doesn't move again.
Yeah.
And the end credits roll. So it's maybe implied that the blob achieved its goal of trying to be outside, not inside, and then maybe died.
Yeah, that's kind of the impression I got.
But also, and then you can speculate that, well, maybe the boy's involvement was that the boy was somehow under the control of the blob, maybe, or was summoned by the blob in some way as like its benefactor, which isn't explained at all.
Well, that's the thing, yeah.
But there's
so many different theories in. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know what to think. Like with Limbo, I think you could make a pretty strong case for a few different endings, and they're all quite neatly tied up and satisfying. But with this, I just don't know. But I love it. I think it's brilliant. But yeah, that theory that it was controlling him and calling him into the place somehow, or was it somebody? Was he trying to save it? I don't know. I mean,
well, there's this. I guess this is where it plays into the alternate ending that we talked about, where if you dismantle enough of these machines, you're granted access. I think one of the sections of the game as you're running through this cornfield, and you're granted access to this underground bunker that's hidden in the cornfield, which you would miss on a normal playthrough. And in the underground bunker, you find there's like, it sort of looks like there's some, like a saboteur who's been holed up down there. He's got like pictures of the blob on the wall and stuff, as if he's been kind of spying on it, or as if he's, researching something. And then if you go into it, there's like a locked kind of, almost like a vault on the other side. And if you go in there, the boy does his, as you run across the screen, there's this huge machine at the back. And the boy turns as he runs past and looks at it as if to say, this is of significance. And I remember the kind of swirling soundtrack just sort of fade into silence. And you can unplug the machine, sort of, piece by piece or whatever. And as you finally unplug it and it explodes and breaks down, that's it, game over, fade to black. But as it fades to black, the boy slumps down in exactly the same stance as the zombie people, as if to imply that machine has been controlling him all along, manipulating him. Maybe the organisation wanted him to come and merge with the blob, and this was all part of their plan all along.
Wow.
And I guess, therefore, by implication, you, the player, have also been controlled like a zombie to do exactly what you've been.
I don't know. Maybe the ones that you control are like the kind of like the basic ones that, I don't know, that you need the machine, but maybe the thing they're experimenting on is something that can control things from much further away and without any kind of, I don't know. It's hard to say, but yeah, it does. I mean, it does add up. The ending you said,
it's brilliant. It's almost like a fourth wall breaking kind of moment, and there is just a final piece of, I guess, evidence to support this theory, which I completely missed, is when you're rampaging through the office as the blob, rampaging through the facility, you smash through this. There's this like this, what would you call it? Like a diorama, like a mock-up, like almost like an architect's model.
Yeah.
In the background, and you can just smash through. I think at one point you have to like yank a whole toilet cute stall off the wall to get, which is, there's a water gushing everywhere. It's just really fun. But that diorama, let's call it, is depicting the final scene of the blob lying at the bottom of the hill with a shaft of light shining on it.
Yeah.
As if to imply that it's not outside, that's inside, and it's all part of this
plan. Whatever the experiment was.
God knows why. It almost implies that this happens over and over again, and they're constantly creating blobs, and this is some sort of test that they're running or some part of a process. It's not properly explained, but it's when you see that diorama, when that gets pointed out on a YouTube video that somebody made, I was like, holy shit, mind blown, but I don't quite know what it means, but still, it's amazing.
So good. I really actually want to play it again now.
Yeah, it's made me want to go and play it straight away after this recording.
And so should you, listeners.
Absolutely. And form your own theory and contact us and let us know your theory, because it's definitely going to be better than that shit Liam was talking earlier. Let's face it. And
that's the thing, even though we have given the spoiler away, but I still think, even knowing the ending and even the alternative ending, you still get a lot out of it, and it's still quite a shocking game, even if you know all that.
Yeah, and the puzzles still require some, relatively clever fathoming.
So I think it is still worth playing, even if you do kind of have a rough idea. Because like you said, you maybe you spot something that kind of helps you form, a different theory about the ending. So, yeah, really good. Really good. Love it.
Yeah. And the perfect length.
Perfect.
The games, they take a few hours to complete. You could do them in over a few solid evenings, or you could drag it out over a few weeks.
You could probably do it, in one sitting, but, probably 2 or 3. Yeah, perfect.
It's not like a bloody 70-hour epic that demands all your time.
And sometimes there's a lot of filler in those games, isn't there? And it's just...
Loads, yeah.
But no, this is, I agree, perfect length. Especially for what it is. It's a downloadable game. I think it's on the Switch now. Quite cheap. I'm going to find out the price of it now, because I want people to buy it.
Always good. And I was going to say, if you really want to play it, I'll first person to write in, I'll give it you for free, but I can't because I haven't got it on hard copy.
No.
I only downloaded it, so that was a hollow offer. And no one will write in anyway.
They might. It's 16 quid on Xbox, 18 quid on Nintendo Switch. And let's have a look.
What? But that's the you'd spend that on what? 3 pints in the pub. Actually, 3 pints in the pub sounds quite good, doesn't it? That was bad logic.
Or have 3 pints and get this.
Or have 3 pints, then try and play this.
In fact, I've just had a look. So it's 16 quid also on PlayStation. But on PlayStation, they've got the Limbo and Inside bundle, which is £22.
Ooh.
I'll take that, boy.
It's a no-brainer.
And pop it on your wish list. Bound to be in the sale at some point. So there you go. No excuse. Get a console.
Liam, any...
PC. Hang on. I'm going to find out how much it costs on PC. Because I'm sick of these people just finding excuses. Oh, we can't buy it. 15 quid on PC, even cheaper. And there's a Steam sale coming up soon.
What are you waiting for? Why have you not bought it already, people? What are you doing with your lives?
So just fucking do it.
Just get it now! Do it now!
It's almost like we're controlling them. It's not, is it?
I couldn't think of a punchline, but it was really good. That I like where you go. Yeah, go with that.
Don't you want to be on the inside? Yeah, not as good.
Is that? Are you saying you want him to be on the show, like instead of you, so you don't have to bother?
That sounds. I mean, no. But there we go. I think is it in the Hall of Pain? Come on, is anything not in the Hall of Pain at this point?
I was going to say, do you want to give your final summary pitch?
What's the fucking
can't
point?
Be asked. It's in. They're definitely in.
Both
They're
of
brilliant.
them.
Both of them. Easy. And maybe they could share a cell.
Yeah.
Does that work?
I think so.
Wait, no, actually, let's get this right. Limbo gets a cell with Steve, the little creepy-headed boy, in, and he can just sit there in the dark, moaning. Inside gets a specially reinforced cell. No, a tank, because it's the blob, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, we need to get that structurally sound to accommodate the blob, because it's pretty robust.
I've just had a thought actually. I wonder if there are any theories about the two games being linked.
Well, there are by things like the worms. So that the presence of those white worms definitely implies that they're somehow in the same universe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But then that seems weird because... But then equally, the universe of the first game is surely is Limbo, is some sort of purgatory, afterlife. So that doesn't quite work. But
So the worms wouldn't be in the real life of Inside.
But I'm sure that theories abound on that very subject of to what extent the games are related, or even is it a sequel? Is it a prequel?
Who knows?
Is Steve actually a blob?
Could be. Yeah, and maybe at the end he's dead in the blob, and then he's in limbo. So there you go.
You heard it here first.
Playing both both in the Hall of Pain, both great games. What more can you say?
Well, I'll tell you what I can say, Liam, is after I think this is our 40th episode or 40 odd episodes we've been doing this for, which is staggering. I was going to say achievement, but it's not really an achievement, is it?
No.
A staggering waste of time by both of us, but fun. But we've never had a proper outro, have we? Because we've never thought of one. I've got one.
Hey, hang on.
Are you ready for this? Okay. So it's imperative that when I say this outro, we just stop recording and log off professionally. What we absolutely cannot have is any sort of awkward pause and then a sarcastic response, because that would undermine it.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't it? So it's essential that doesn't
Definitely
happen.
won't happen.
Here we go. Well, thank you from us. That's all for Dark Natter. And make sure you don't have nightmares. Or if you do, make sure they're good ones.
I like it.
What you did there was you subverted my expectation that you were going to take the piss out of it. So that was very clever.
I mean, I was being sarcastic when I said I liked it.
And we have now waffled on and ruined the...
Exactly.
And with that, another episode of Dark Natter draws to a dark and disturbing close, with Liam taking the piss out of me as usual. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. I also have a small announcement, or a big announcement. An announcement. You decide whether it's big or small. I have a new book out. It's called The Warden. It is a techno-thriller, sort of Die Hard meets Black Mirror meets Hugh Howey's Wool in lockdown. If that appeals to you, then please seek out more information by searching for John Richter, which is me, online. JONRICHTER. You can follow me at Richter Writes on Twitter, or you can visit my website, www.john-richter.com, or you can just type John Richter into Amazon, or you can type The Warden into Amazon, or into Google, although then you might get other wardens of various degrees of fame. Would be delighted if you would have a look, and the book will be available to pre-order very soon, or by the time you're listening to this it probably already is, and it will be released in June of this year. So exciting times in the Richter household. Meanwhile, we on Dark Natter will be back in a couple of weeks as usual with more mutterings of mayhem, and we look forward to speaking to you then. Goodbye.